I was 10,000 miles away from my hometown when Iceman was released. And while there was so much to explore in Vietnam that day, my boys and I still made time to listen to all 43 tracks. There was too much anticipation, too much narrative. We couldn't wait. We had to listen. We had to know what it sounded like. And clearly the world agreed. A week later, back home, when I checked the charts, Drake had made history. With 683,000 units sold, he became the first artist to debut with 3 new releases in the top 3 chart spots. Not Taylor Swift, not the Beatles, Drake. On the day of release, he had the biggest streaming day for any artist in 2026, with Iceman alone accumulating 140 million streams. But wait a minute, was it not just 1 year ago when they said he was finished? Written off by the media? Wasn't he called a pedo on America's biggest stage, the Super Bowl? Kendrick won, right? So how the fuck did Drake just have the biggest streaming week of his career? Maybe he didn't just win or lose. Maybe he did both. By the time Iceman dropped, it had already been teased for over a year. While everyone only expected 1 album, we got 3, each telling a different part of the story. Iceman, with 18 tracks, is Drake at his most vulnerable, returning to his hip-hop roots and reminding you who he is. Make Them Cry sets the tone for the album. Ran to Atlanta reunites him with Future, something all the fans were wishing for. Janice STFU is the most streamed track thus far. Make Them Pay features wordplay that can only really be compared to his former mentor Lil Wayne, and my personal favorite is Whisper My Name. Not to mention all the other great tracks on this project. It's no doubt some of Drake's most consistent work in a long time. The project sold 460,000 units first week, the biggest hip-hop debut since Travis Scott's Utopia in the summer of 2023. Habib T leans more R&B and sold 114,000 units. Besides Iceman, this is still the 5th largest R&B and hip-hop debut of the year. My favorite track is WNBA, but other standouts include Slap the City Classic and Fort Worth with longtime collaborator Party Next Door. Maid of Honor, my favorite and the most fun of the 3, sold 109,000 first week and leans more into dance and EDM. Tracks like Road Trips, Ho Phase, and New Bestie are already embedded into my rotation. And tracks like Cheetah Prince, whether you like it or not, will be played in the nightclubs the next time you go out. DJ/producer Gordo is credited on 10 of the 14 tracks on Maid of Honor, and calls it the sequel to Honestly Nevermind, Drake's dance project from 2022. 3 albums contain 43 tracks. And while it is still common in hip-hop to bloat albums with filler tracks, or release a second deluxe project to make more money, never before have we seen it done with 3 albums on the same day. He dominated Apple Music. On the top 50, 40 were Drake songs, and the top 30 were all Drake. And Genius crashed too. 21 million website visits on release day, filled with people examining the lyrics, not just streaming, but curious about what he had to say. And we can't forget about the rollout, which was insane. A 25-foot icebox in the middle of Toronto, 800 fans melting it with their bare hands, the CN Tower lit up with 138 million pixels of digital ice, Gishka pulling 100,000 in cash from a briefcase outside Drake's mansion. The fans were participating in the narrative. The story was literally the product. None of this should be happening to a man who just lost the biggest rap beef of the decade. And yet here we are. But none of this makes sense without understanding what happened first. As I was walking back to my college apartment on a cold spring night in March 2024, I pulled out my headphones. New Future and Metro Boomin. Holy shit. Dancing to my apartment, Like That came on. Wait a minute. Kendrick? A diss? I stopped in my tracks, startled, and rewound. A diss it was, and by morning, it was all over my feed. My conversations the next day were filled with the news and our speculations. We were surprised, unsure what would come next. The beef had begun. A month later, I was in the gym. Push-ups, drop and give me 50. A good response, I thought. This should be a fun story to follow. This is good for hip-hop. It needs it. Kendrick retaliated with Euphoria. 6 minutes of staring Drake in the face, questioning his identity, authenticity, and role as a father. A rather quick escalation. May 3rd was when it became chaotic. He followed up again with 616 in LA, suggesting there was a mole in Drake's camp feeding him information. Drake responded with Family Matters, a 7-minute diss accusing Kendrick of abuse and infidelity, questioning the parentage of his kids. Not even 30 minutes later, Kendrick answered with Meet the Grams, a letter to Drake's son, a letter to his mother, a letter to his father, filled with allegations about hidden children and predatory behavior. The kind of thing you just can't unhear. The final blow came the next day. Not Like Us. As of today, it has nearly 2 billion streams. Drake's last-ditch effort was The Heart Part 6, where he denied everything, saying he fed Kendrick false information as a trap. But it was too late. Kendrick had already won. Drake's grave was dug. But it didn't stop there. First was the Juneteenth pop-out concert in LA a month later, where he played Not Like Us 5 times and had the whole stadium chanting Drake's crimes, including LeBron James. Then came GNX, then the Grammys, finally the Super Bowl, where Kendrick performed Not Like Us on America's biggest stage. But Drake couldn't let this slide. He turned to the courts. In January 2025, through his company Frozen Moments LLC, he sued Universal Music Group, not Kendrick, for defamation, alleging that they knowingly promoted false and damaging claims via Not Like Us. But the judge threw it out. He ruled that diss tracks are opinion, not fact. You can't sue over a rap battle. This only left Drake more unsatisfied. He appealed. They responded. He replied. And as of Iceman's release, it's still not over. He can't let it be over. I can't imagine what all of this was like for Drake. How terrible. Especially since the allegations are still unproven. Emotional scars had to have been formed. Not to mention all the other rappers that jumped in, superficially forcing themselves into the conversation for their own benefit. Not Like Us has become almost impossible for me to listen to. I have shame pressing play. Regardless of whether he's guilty or not, I sit in limbo. Drake is wounded. By all accounts, he lost the fight. The one that was supposed to end his career. The one that mattered. The cultural one. And yet, here we are. Iceman, the biggest album of the year. So did Drake win? Or did Drake lose? 3 judges provide the answer to this question. First, the media. They say he lost. That the albums are bloated, unearned, and Kendrick already won the culture. But the fans disagree. They say he won. That numbers speak for themselves, and history was made. Who cares what the critics think? But there's a third voice, a third judge. And at the end of the day, it's the only one that matters. Drake himself. What is Drake saying? The Make Them series in Iceman gives us our answers, with Make Them Cry providing the first clue. The framing of the title is revealing. He wants to make them cry, to feel bad for him. But who is them? In the song he raps, been so paranoid that nothing in this world seems coincidental, and I'm still healing my own traumas I've barely adapted, and I don't do psychedelics because I'm too scared of unpacking. Barely adapted? Drake is not healed. He's not over it. Let's move on. Maybe it gets better. For Make Them Pay, I need compliments because lately it's just falling out in disagreements. The industry is really evil. Drake needs to be told everything's okay. He needs compliments. This is Drake at his biggest, yet he's still asking us for reassurance. Sure, the industry is evil, but he's still not taking responsibility for his situation. He's still blaming everyone else. That's not a man who feels like he won. What about Make Them Remember? He raps, I shouldn't even be shocked to see you in that arena because you always made your career off of switching teams up. A LeBron James diss. Why is Drake dissing LeBron James? To be honest, I forgot about this whole thing, but clearly Drake didn't. He wants to make us remember. But why? Dissing LeBron in 2026 makes no strategic sense. LeBron cost him nothing. It's bringing up something everyone else moved past. But this win for Drake is still open. Maybe Make Them Know turns things positive. I'm sleeping with death on my mind because of the shots that I caught in my time. And karma has been on my side, but I also just heard that she's blind. Death is on his mind. Of course, not every track is deeply reflective, and these are just some of the first examples that jumped out at me. There is still a lot of fun throughout. But we don't get 43 songs and 3 albums without the drama. The aftermath is used as material, both in creative output and motivation. Neither could Drake have predicted the future, the commercial success the work would achieve. But the beef built the wound built the material, and the material resulted in the biggest streaming day of his career. Yet the material alone doesn't explain why people press play. That's instead a result of the relationships he's built with millions of people over the last decade. I've spent 22,000 minutes of my life with Drake in both years. At that point, it runs much deeper than a disagreement. What do I care about the beef? He's already become a huge part of my life, and his falling out in disagreements could never change that. But if you haven't spent that time with Drake, it's likely the beef was enough to kill any future streaming history, at least short term. But is a cultural loss going to make me and the millions of other fans who've progressed through life with Drake alongside them stop listening? The fans who've had their biggest moments, whether playing in an important sports event, walking into a job interview, or getting ready for a date with Drake in their ears? No way. And those are the people who stream the music, who buy the merch, who see him on tour. And it's why it was one of the biggest streaming days of his career. A psychological loss created a commercial win. That's not winning or losing. That's both. The truth is, Drake didn't need to put those lyrics on the album. He could have avoided it entirely, taken a victory lap. But instead, he was vulnerable with us. Told us he's barely adapted, that he needs compliments, that he's thinking about death. So while the numbers say he won, the music tells a different story. That he's still in it, that the wound is still healing. As a fan, there's a selfish part of me that's okay with that, because isn't the wound what gave us 43 tracks? But there's another part of me that just wants him to be okay. But here's what I do know. Despite being 10,000 miles away from home when Iceman came out, I listened to all 43 tracks. My boys and I, in a foreign country across the world, listening to 3 albums by a man whose grave was already supposedly dug. The numbers say he won. The music says he's still in it. Both are true, but that just raises a deeper question. Which win actually matters? The first week sales? The streaming record? The rollout? Or the thing that's still standing once nobody cares about the beef anymore? In a year, the narrative will be gone. The general population won't care about it anymore. They will have gotten their answers, the next lines of the story. The only people listening at that point will be those who are fans of the music itself. And if I were to guess, I think they will be.